why your legs are whispering to you after 60, and what happens if you keep ignoring them. There are moments in life when the body stops speaking in sentences and begins to whisper. Not with pain sharp enough to send you to the hospital, but with quiet signals you brush off. A little heaviness in the legs, a strange wobble when stepping off a curb, a second thought before standing up from a chair. Nothing dramatic, nothing worth calling the doctor about. And yet, something feels off. But what if I told you that these subtle changes are not random? What if they are warnings, sacred biological messages that your body is sending before it breaks down? And what if I told you that millions are ignoring them, dismissing them as just age, only to face the terrifying consequence of one unexpected fall, one broken hip, one irreversible shift in their freedom? Welcome to Buddha Story, and today we are going to uncover a quiet truth that almost no one talks about. Why your legs are losing power even when your heart is strong. Why climbing stairs feels like lifting bricks. And most importantly, why this is not just about your body, but about your awareness, your path, your presence in the world. So do not blink, do not click away, because buried inside these subtle symptoms is not just a medical story, but a spiritual one. A call to wake up before life demands it. And if you value this kind of deep reflection, if you want more teachings that merge ancient insight with modern healing, please subscribe to our channel. Your support gives us the strength to continue creating videos like this for people like you on paths like yours. Let me begin with a story. It is not dramatic, it is not tragic, but it is real, and that makes it powerful. Years ago, at a meditation retreat center nestled deep in the hills of Bhutan, I met a woman named Clara. She was 71 years old, dignified and silent most of the time. She did not sit on a cushion like the younger students. Instead, she rested on a bench near the edge of the garden, her hands always folded in stillness. One afternoon, as the wind rustled the prayer flags above us, I sat beside her. "Do you ever walk the labyrinth trail?" I asked. She smiled slowly. "I used to," she said, "but my legs, they have become like sandbags." She was not bitter. She was not complaining. She was simply speaking the truth, a truth many elders carry silently. The legs grow heavy, the balance falters, and the world begins to shrink, not from outside in, but from the ground up. What struck me most was not what she said, but what she said next. "I do not think it is age," she whispered. "I think my body is trying to speak, and I am the one who has gone deaf." That sentence has stayed with me for years, because in the Dhamma, we are taught that suffering begins not when pain appears, but when awareness disappears. When we stop listening, when we stop observing, and that includes the body. The Buddha himself discovered this after years of self-denial. When Siddhartha practiced extreme austerity, starving himself, punishing his body, he did not reach enlightenment. He reached collapse. Only when he remembered the gentle balance of his youth, sitting under the rose apple tree in peace and nourishment, did he find the middle way. That was the path that led him to awakening, not through rejection of the body, but through harmony with it. You see, your legs are not just limbs. They are instruments of presence. Every step you take is an act of will, of coordination, of balance. And when the legs begin to falter, it is not just about physical decline. It is about disconnection from the brain, from the breath, from the earth beneath you. Science will tell you that this may be due to declining levels of vitamin D3, B12, and B1. And yes, that is part of the story. But the deeper truth is that the body is always in dialogue with you. These symptoms, the shaking, the slowness, the fatigue, are not malfunctions. They are metaphors, warnings, requests. In Buddhist practice, we are taught to listen not just with ears, but with awareness. And so I ask you, when was the last time you listened to your legs? Not judged them, not pushed them, but truly listened? Because if you do, you may hear what Clara heard. A whisper that says, "I need support." A breath that says, "Feed me with care." A stillness that says, "You are moving too fast. Come back." Do not wait for your body to shout. Most people only begin to pay attention after a fall, a fracture, a crisis. But the wise practitioner listens to the whisper. That is the path of mindfulness. That is the path of the Buddha. When you begin to lose your footing, you are not just losing balance, you are being invited to reclaim it, physically, emotionally, spiritually. The monastery elder I once studied with, Venerable Ashin Jinpa, used to say, every stumble is a sermon, every ache is a teacher. The body is not trying to punish you, it is trying to wake you up. And now I say this to you, if your legs have felt slower lately, if you hesitate before standing, if your walk has narrowed into smaller and smaller circles, do not call it aging, call it a message, because that message, if you honor it, can lead you to healing. Yes, perhaps with the help of certain nutrients, but also through presence, through returning to the body not as an enemy, but as a companion on your journey. You may be in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, but strength is not youth. Strength is alignment, and alignment begins with awareness. Now, before we move to the next part, where we explore what those three nutrients are and how they help, I want to leave you with a question, not for me, for you. Which of these two beliefs do you hold closer? A, my body is failing me, and I just need to accept it. B, my body is changing, and I have the power to meet it with understanding. Please type your answer in the comments below, A or B, and let us see how many of us are walking this journey with shared wisdom. And remember, no matter what your answer is, the journey continues. And in the next part, we will walk it together, one mindful step at a time. The three silent allies that restore strength, if you know how to listen. There is a moment when decline feels inevitable, when a person, once sure-footed and swift, begins to second-guess each step. And yet, so often, this decline is not due to age itself, but to what age slowly takes away without our notice, quietly, almost respectfully, as if it were giving us time to respond. In the teachings of the Buddha, there is the concept of appropriate attention, yoniso manasikara. It means seeing what is truly there, not what we assume or fear. But this kind of seeing requires us to pause and examine what we have overlooked. The body, too, is a field for this kind of wise investigation. And when our legs grow tired, when our balance fades, we must ask, what has changed? What has been lost? What might the body be needing, not just spiritually, but physiologically? Long ago, I lived for a season in a monastery outside Kyoto. There, an elderly monk named Ryosuke was known for his silent walking meditations through the maple grove, even in his advanced age. But one winter, we noticed he no longer took those morning walks. He still attended the morning bell, still chanted with us, but he remained seated during kinhin, walking meditation. I once asked him why. My legs do not listen as they used to, he said, smiling. And perhaps I did not listen to them either. This reciprocal failure of attention, from the body to the mind and the mind to the body, is at the heart of so much avoidable suffering. But it can also be reversed. And what we are learning through both science and contemplative practice is that often what the legs need is not a miracle or a machine, but nourishment. The first ally in this nourishment is vitamin D3. You may know it as the sunshine vitamin, but to those of us who study both physiology and meditation, it is something deeper. Vitamin D3 supports the calcium that gives bones their strength, yes, but more profoundly, it governs the coordination between the nervous system and the muscles. Without it, the bones weaken, the muscles tighten, and the smooth symphony of walking begins to break down. Many elderly people unknowingly walk in a state of silent deficiency. Their skin no longer synthesizes D3 from sunlight efficiently. Their kidneys and liver, the organs that convert D3 into its active form, begin to slow. They may sit indoors more than before, wrapped in warmth, protected from cold, but also from light. And so, without complaint, the body begins to run on less and less of a nutrient it needs more and more. In the monastery, Ryosuke eventually shared that he had begun supplementing with D3. Within a week, he reported a softness in his knees that he had not felt in months. Not strength exactly, but permission. The fear of losing balance had softened. And with that fear gone, his walking returned, slowly, then more confidently. The dosage does not need to be excessive. Most studies support 800 to 2,000 IU per day. What matters more is how it is taken. It must be paired with healthy fat, olive oil, avocado, egg yolks for the body to absorb it properly. And it should be taken in the morning when it aligns with the body's natural rhythm of alertness and energy. Just as meditation should not follow a heavy meal, vitamin D3 should not be taken on an empty stomach. There is a rhythm to everything. Respecting that rhythm is part of the practice. The second ally is vitamin B12. If D3 is the foundation, B12 is the signal. It is the messenger between the brain and the limbs, the quiet courier that ensures your intention becomes action. Without B12, the messages falter. You think step, but your feet hesitate. You imagine balance, but your body wavers. B12 deficiency is notoriously hard to detect. It mimics other conditions, fatigue, depression, neuropathy, and because it is absorbed through the stomach lining, it becomes increasingly difficult to obtain through food as we age. The elderly may eat meat, dairy, eggs, all good sources of B12, and still be deficient, especially those taking acid reducers, which blunt the body's ability to draw B12 from food. There was a woman at the retreat named Eleanor. She was sharp, articulate, and deeply devoted to her walking meditation. But one autumn, she began to feel what she called a disconnect. Her feet tingled. She felt off balance even on flat ground. I suggested she check her B12 levels. The result was not surprising. She was deficient, significantly. Within 2 weeks of beginning a methylcobalamin supplement, the symptoms eased. The tingling softened. The drift vanished. What made the difference was not just that she took B12, but how. The form matters. Methylcobalamin is the most bioavailable, meaning the body can use it immediately. And because digestion is often compromised, sublingual forms, dissolved under the tongue, are most effective. Taken at midday, preferably with warmth, supports both physical energy and neurological clarity during the hours you are most active. And finally, the third atom, vitamin B1, also known as cyanide. Of the three, it is perhaps the most quietly essential. B1 transforms glucose into energy, not just for the mind, but for the muscles. Without it, even strong muscles feel weak. The legs ache, the body slows. You are fed, but you are not fueled. What makes B1 so precarious is how easily it is lost. Alcohol, even in small amounts, can deplete it. Diuretics flush it out. Processed foods offer calories without coenzymes. And so we eat, and yet grow tired. We rest, but do not recover. In the words of Ryosuke, I felt like I was walking uphill on flat ground. B1 is not stored in the body in large quantities. It must be replenished regularly. A morning dose of 50 to 100 milligrams is gentle and effective. When paired with protein or whole grains, such as eggs, nuts, or oatmeal, absorption improves. But timing is important. Black tea, for instance, can inhibit B1 uptake. As with so many things, the context shapes the outcome. What these three allies offer is not youth. It is not reversal. It is restoration. They bring back what has been lost slowly and visibly. Strength, yes, but also trust. The trust that your body will respond when you ask it to move, that your legs will hold you when you stand, that your steps will carry you where your heart wishes to go. But more than that, they remind us that healing does not come only from great effort. Sometimes it comes from understanding, from attention, from giving the body not just what it craves, but what it has quietly missed. The Buddha did not teach us to ignore the body. He taught us to observe it, to care for it, to see it as a vessel for awakening, and in doing so, to walk the path, not with pain or pride, but with peace. So if your legs have been whispering lately, asking for help, consider what they might be missing, not just in spirit, but in substance. And let that be part of your practice, to listen more closely, to walk more gently, to nourish more wisely. In that, there is not only healing, there is freedom.